How does a husband answer when his wife walks out of their anniversary dinner to spend the night with her ex? Why did he stay calm, say almost nothing, and let the law talk for him? What happens when the papers finally arrive where everyone can see? My name is Eulalie Voss, and I tell my truth plainly to strangers today. I was 31, married to Marcus, and bored beyond polite words for years. People said we were stable. I said stability felt like chains on me. I worked as an office coordinator and managed everyone except myself. Most days well. Adrian, my ex, texted again, and my heart woke up after a long sleep. I called it honesty, not cheating, because labels bend under pressure for me. Marcus stayed calm, which I twisted into proof he never cared about my needs. My friends cheered my freedom and tagged me in bright stories all night. My mother said passion matters. My father said think about consequences before damage. I framed Marcus as controlling, since calm men are easy targets for bored wives. I told myself a boundary crossed could fix our stale marriage for good. I ignored the mirror and called the reflection bold and brave like me. I spoke in firm tones, so doubt sounded like jealous noise to my ears. I told Marcus I needed space. He answered with quiet distance at home. I thought I won, not seeing consequences gather like clouds above my small life. I dressed slowly for dinner, rehearsing lines that sounded strong and clean to me. Marcus waited by the door, checking the time like always, steady and boring. I told him we should celebrate high above traffic, where city lights flatter faces. He said a quiet place would be nicer, and I rolled my eyes at that. I texted Sasha that I might test him tonight, see who chases the most. Sasha replied with heart emojis, and I felt brave without actual courage inside today. At the rooftop bar, wind lifted my hair and attention followed easily toward me. I posted a filtered story saying anniversaries deserve surprises, not routines for dull men. Marcus gave me a small box with earrings, neat, simple, patient like his heart. I thanked him with a smile that meant, try harder, try brighter next time. He asked if I felt okay and I said I was fine, of course. The waiter poured water. I checked my phone under the folded napkin without blinking. Adrian's name appeared like a spark, asking where I would sleep tonight with him. I typed that I might stay, if plans stayed quiet and sweet for us. Marcus admired the skyline, and I decided his silence proved emotional neglect toward me. He asked about dessert, and I said control should stop at sugar tonight, Marcus. He blinked, then nodded, and I marked that as further proof he was cold. Sasha messaged asking if the ex still wanted the after-party plan with just me. I answered that the decision depended on whether Marcus begged loudly enough tonight, though. We ordered appetizers, and I made small jokes, sharp as lemon seeds for him. Marcus said the view calmed him, and I called that predictable like spreadsheet lines. My phone buzzed again, hidden under the napkin like a small animal begging me. Adrian asked if I could leave early, before the staff noticed my sudden absence. I imagined his room, scented candles, curated playlists, everything focused on me feeling worthy. Marcus lifted his glass and I lifted mine, like separate islands floating near storms. He asked if I wanted to dance and I declined politely, saying sore feet. I wrote Sasha that I would do something bold and unforgettable tonight for myself. She replied that brave girls choose passion and never settle for patience from anyone. Marcus asked about my day, and I gave short, polished answers like meeting notes. He mentioned a personal appointment tomorrow downtown, and I barely listened, thinking about escape. I asked why downtown mattered, and he said it was practical for some errands. I marked that sentence as proof he loved tasks more than me these days. The main course came and I barely touched the plate, pretending to have a delicate appetite tonight. Adrian wrote that a rideshare waited near the service alley downstairs for my call. I told myself I deserved something vivid, even if others felt hurt by it. Marcus reached for my hand, and I adjusted my bracelet instead, saying watch out. He asked if we were okay, and I said probably yes with better effort. He nodded gently, then looked at the city again, seeking quiet water inside himself. I messaged Adrian that I would step out for fresh air very soon now. Sasha sent a flame sticker, and I felt chosen by fate at last, again. I stood and said I needed the restroom, and Marcus smiled politely toward me. In the mirror, I practiced brave eyes, then hid my shaking hands behind perfume. I walked past the hostess stand, following the sign toward elevators and midnight doors. The phone buzzed again, and I deleted the preview without breathing even 1 second. I pictured Adrian waiting. Open door, soft lamp, sheets turned back for my arrival. The elevator arrived with a bell, and I stepped inside alone, leaving him upstairs. My heart raced like shoes on the stairs, but my face stayed calm for the staff. I told myself strong women choose, and hesitation belongs to weaker people than me. I texted Sasha that I felt electric, and she promised champagne later for stories. When the doors opened, cool air hit, and the night swallowed me very neatly. Smoke curled around the patio heaters while Sasha edited last night's blurry clips online. She said the angles flattered me, and I said freedom flatters everything. We ordered fries, and I performed my laugh that sounds like approval for everyone. A stranger asked about my dress. Sasha said I was celebrating renewed independence today. I said anniversaries can be rough, and freedom smooths the hard edges for me. My phone buzzed with comments, hearts rising like bubbles in cheap Prosecco all afternoon. The rooftop video posted, showing Marcus alone while servers cleared untouched plates behind him. I said he preferred quiet, so I let him commune peacefully with the skyline. Sasha said mystery sells, and I said generosity sells louder than mystery most nights. Adrian texted a sun emoji. I answered with stars and a lock for discretion. A co-worker tagged me, writing that courage looks like choosing yourself publicly without apologies. Delia liked the post briefly, then unliked it before notifications fully loaded for me. I told Sasha family gets confused, and she said confusion brings important engagement metrics. We left the patio laughing, and the doorman looked away with boredom at us. Morning came bright. I arrived late at work, practicing confident strides everywhere I went. The open plan hum felt heavy, like everyone rehearsed sympathy or criticism internally for me. A desk mate asked about dinner, and I said the restaurant disappointed taste buds horribly. Renee appeared at my partition and requested a quick word in private about attendance. In the HR room, she asked about focus. I answered with brightness and ambition. I said home life churned lately. She said resources existed for support, if needed. I promised productivity returns soon, and she nodded while taking neutral notes in silence. Back at my desk, a notification showed Marcus tagged in photos from last night. He sat alone, fork idle. Comments speculated conflict, and I basked in sympathetic light. I posted a caption saying love without fire becomes sleepwalking under lights for years. Mother commented with hearts, saying passion matters. Father reminded me about consequences and budgets. I answered that budgets follow bravery, and he stopped sending further texts to me. Lunch hour arrived. I decided to parade confidence past Marcus's building once today deliberately. In the lobby, I saw him behind glass, speaking with headphones on very quietly. I waved playfully. He nodded, then minimized a screen as I approached his desk. For a heartbeat, I glimpsed a spreadsheet listing initials and dates carefully arranged there. He closed the laptop gently. I called that theatrical, pretending nothing mattered to me. A co-worker from accounting recognized me, asking whether dinner ended early yesterday for us. I said traffic ruined the ambience, and servers rushed courses like panicked pigeons up there. Outside, Sasha messaged that my clip climbed, and I felt vindicated by trending heat. Delia texted a single line asking whether humiliation ever counts as courage for me. I replied that honesty hurts, and she stopped answering my confident paragraph soon after. Adrian sent another emoji, this time waves. I imagined tidal devotion forming for us. Sasha suggested a celebratory drink. I said I had performance metrics pending at work. Afternoon dragged. I rewrote captions twice, crafting language that blamed nobody openly, except circumstance. A client call rang. I sounded cheerful, promising turnarounds with renewed clarity very soon. At 3, the group chat exploded, tagging me beside Marcus's lonely chair from before. The caption asked where I slept. I answered with vague empowerment language about freedom. Reactions split. Some praised independence, others wondered about cruelty and showmanship together in public. I told myself crowds misunderstand greatness, and greatness often feels temporarily lonely during storms. Renee passed again, asking if deadlines remained safe. I affirmed with brightness and poise. She reminded me about punctuality. I promised improvements while checking notifications again between tasks. As evening neared, I drafted a message inviting Adrian to tomorrow's dinner with friends. He replied hours later, suggesting coffee instead. I called that thoughtful caution for now. Walking to the elevator, my phone vibrated with a blaring notification from our group. The group chat tagged me again, demanding answers, while my manager waited beside reception. Sasha arrived early to help me rehearse lines for tonight. We met on the rooftop terrace before the birthday dinner downstairs. She said the angles flattered me, and I said freedom flatters everything. I said the crowd loves strong women more than quiet men. Wind lifted my hair while I practiced dismissive gestures with bright laughter. Sasha filmed a quick teaser and promised the caption would praise bravery. I told her the birthday crowd needed a clear narrative tonight. She asked whether Marcus might attend, and I said probably yes, unfortunately. Inside the elevator, I practiced a toast about freedom and self-respect. I promised myself I would not mention Adrian by name. At the community hall, balloons knocked softly against banners taped slightly crooked. Tables stretched long with paper cloth, candles and loud cutlery chatter. Delia waved politely, then sat near Marcus with her protective posture. I took the far end, centered for attention and camera angles. Uncle Theo joked about speeches, and the room loosened into anticipation. I told Sasha the stage felt perfect, with soft lighting flattering everyone. Marcus arrived late, carrying flowers for the host, not looking toward me. He nodded at familiar faces and took a seat without fanfare today. I whispered to Sasha that he loved spreadsheets more than people. She laughed and adjusted my dress straps like armor for battle. The host clinked a glass and invited anyone to share kind words. Sasha nudged my elbow and I stood the way queens stand. I spoke about choosing myself when love grows sleepy and repetitive. I said loyalty without passion becomes duty, and duty kills romance. A cousin raised his phone. The red recording light glowed plainly. Delia asked whether humiliating someone counts as growth, because pain echoes online. I said honesty sometimes stings, and she should respect brave choices. Murmurs spread like ripples. Some nodded, others looked down at plates. Marcus kept silent, folding a napkin square, then setting it aside. I claimed his calm proved distance, and distance justified my sudden awakening. Uncle Theo changed the subject, asking for cake before speeches turned dangerous. The host insisted I finish, which pleased me more than cake. I described our anniversary dinner, framing myself as abandoned at that table. I omitted leaving early and said I walked for fresh air. A few friends clapped, several others exchanged worried glances around corners. Sasha whispered that reactions looked mixed, and I called them jealous. Delia asked where I slept afterward, and I said with clarity. Someone snorted softly, and the cousin's camera angled tighter toward me. Marcus rose briefly, saying he needed a call, then stepped outside. Headphones circled his neck as he moved through the doorway with patience. I told the table his timing proved avoidance, which supports my bravery. The host attempted humor again, but the room seemed split like ice. Marcus returned quietly and sat, looking at candles rather than me. I asked whether he felt proud of indifference, then smiled for the cameras. He answered that the cake looked good, avoiding my invitation toward conflict. I raised my glass again and declared reinvention a sacred marital right. Applause flickered unevenly while cutlery tapped, and the red light blinked steadily. Delia told the host that public trials rarely help private healing. I said private healing already failed, and the crowd must hear the truth. Sasha squeezed my wrist and urged a lighter tone for optics. I pivoted to jokes about our budget and his endless lists. Laughter returned briefly, thin and polite like plastic cups clacking. Marcus watched the table. Not me, like he measured weather patterns. I said his detachment forced me to choose courage over comfort. A teenager near the doorway whispered, and another lifted a phone higher. The host called for a final toast before cake, urging kindness tonight. I accepted gladly and framed myself as proof that bravery saves marriages. Delia countered that cruelty decorated as bravery still cuts the same. I kept smiling while my stomach tightened, waiting for Marcus to stumble. He remained composed, thanked the host, and asked for cake slices. Someone near me muttered that villains rarely volunteer dessert, confusing my script. The cousin's camera inched closer while the chant for another toast grew. I lifted my glass again, feeling heat rise as lights reflected everywhere. The recording light blinked bright, and the room held its breath. Cake plates arrived slowly, and forks paused like waiting microphones. My phone vibrated faintly against glass, demanding a better performance. I smiled wider, promising myself redemption after this final flourish. Marcus watched the doorway again. Unreadable, steady, impossibly patient tonight. The chant swelled louder, and someone tapped a glass repeatedly. I inhaled, lifted my chin, and waited for the room. Sunday sun warmed the park equipment while Ivy tugged my sleeve gently. She asked why I left dinner early, sounding careful and small. I said grown-ups needed space when feelings turned complicated and tight. She asked if space meant different beds and different houses from now. I laughed lightly and said adults sometimes sleep better separately for clarity. She looked at the swings and asked whether love means staying anyway. I said love also means being honest about energy and needs. She said Marcus looked sad, and I said he preferred quiet. She asked whether quiet equals happiness, and I said, sometimes yes. I pointed at ducks and said families change shapes but remain families. She asked if I chose someone else, and my mouth hardened. I said I chose truth, which sometimes wears different shoes than loyalty. She scuffed the gravel and asked whether truth hurts good people. I said growth usually stings before it frees the lungs. She said Delia cried later, and I said emotions run high. She asked if Marcus would stop visiting, and I shrugged carefully. I said schedules help everyone breathe when emotions roll like storms. She asked who made schedules, and I said responsible people do. She asked if Marcus felt responsible, and I said yes, obviously. She studied me like a tiny judge and kicked dust slowly. I said treats waited at home, and her face brightened briefly. We walked past benches where parents stared like polite statues with questions. Whispers floated soft as feathers, but they still pricked my skin. I told myself envy moved in flocks when courage flew alone. Ivy asked again about beds, and I told her not to worry. She said secrets make stomachs hurt, and I said secrets guard hearts. She said guarded hearts get lonely, and I changed the subject quickly. We left the park and crossed toward the supermarket parking lot. Inside the supermarket, fluorescent lights hummed like insects inside jars. The produce section shimmered with water spray that kissed lettuce leaves. I grabbed strawberries because bright fruit photographs well for sympathetic posts later. Two neighbors eyed my cart and exchanged whispers behind stacked oranges. I straightened my shoulders and decided a performance would help my narrative. I told the cashier that privacy mattered, speaking louder than necessary now. The cashier nodded neutrally and scanned items with careful beeps. A neighbor asked whether Marcus felt okay, using a sweet tone. I said he loved solitude and spreadsheets and would survive emotional turbulence. Another neighbor asked about the rooftop video, pretending casual interest. I said videos never capture context, especially courage, which hides between frames. The line shifted, and someone filmed us with a phone. I smiled brightly and adjusted my hair like a friendly shield. The receipt printed, curling like a ribbon for a staged bow. Outside, Ivy asked again about beds, soft but relentless today. I said some nights adults sleep apart to think clearly again. She asked whether thinking means leaving, and I said not necessarily. She whispered that Marcus made pancakes carefully, and I nodded mechanically. We reached the car and I buckled her while avoiding mirrors. My phone buzzed with Adrian's short message asking for patience again. I told myself patience felt romantic when men whispered promises slowly. The drive home felt long under ordinary afternoon light and traffic. I rehearsed explanations for Nora and Clive like winning speeches. At home, the stairwell smelled faintly of printer toner tonight again. On the landing, the guest bed looked slightly disturbed and straightened afterward. I told myself he staged a distance to make me feel guilty. In the hallway, I noticed a thin binder labelled utilities on a shelf. It looked thicker than bills with new plastic sleeves inside. A sticky note on a folder read clearly about bringing forms. I walked into the kitchen and saw 2 mugs on opposite counters. The arrangement looked ceremonial, like flags marking separate territories. My chest tightened, but I told myself separation sharpens desire. On the dining table, mail stacks were flipped and reordered carefully. I heard a faint hum from another room stopping when I entered. In the study, a laptop screen minimized mid-edit as I approached. I said I only needed a charger, and the room kept breathing. The Cloud Sync pop-up flashed file uploaded successfully before disappearing quickly. I felt like a door closed softly without using a key. On the balcony, wind tugged at my hair like nervous fingers. I called Nora and told her I felt judged by gossip. She said passion matters and that jealous men punish boldness predictably. I said Marcus was punished with silence, which felt crueler than shouting sometimes. She said I should stand firm and demand tenderness without begging. I said I already did, and she praised my brave clarity today. After the call, I stared at streetlights flickering into the early evening. Inside, Ivy arranged her crayons and asked for pancakes tomorrow morning. I said Marcus loved pancake mornings, maybe next weekend depending on plans. She asked if plans meant schedules and forms and important meetings. I said responsible people mark calendars so feelings can become manageable. She asked whether being manageable means happiness or just less noise. I said happiness often grows after order sweeps the floor. She asked whether Marcus cried, and I said he rarely cried. She asked whether I cried, and I said almost never. She said people who never cry might break silently, which sounded rehearsed. I told her that movie lines sometimes help children understand adult matters. She nodded, then requested a story about brave queens choosing themselves daily. I started telling one while my phone vibrated again insistently. Adrian sent another brief message, softer than before, promising eventual clarity. I felt less thrilled and more annoyed by the vagueness tonight. In the hallway, a locked desk drawer clicked softly as I passed. I pretended not to hear while heat rose along my neck. I set out school forms and wrote reminders on sticky notes nearby. The house felt organized, like someone prepared for a long journey already. I opened the fridge and found labeled containers stacked neatly in rows. A new key on Marcus's ring hung beside the doorframe hook. I touched it and wondered about locks and stories behind hardware. The guest room sheets smelled like detergent, folded with hotel precision. I sat on the bed and scrolled through comments again. The birthday video gathered angry faces and disappointed paragraphs from relatives. I told myself progress scares people who surrendered long ago already. The shredder hummed again briefly, then stopped like a held breath. I walked back to the balcony and watched neighbours unload groceries slowly. Someone looked up, then looked away, practicing kindness through distance. Ivy asked for water and an extra blanket for bedtime. I brought both and tucked her in gently without lingering lectures. She asked if love returns when screens stop recording for crowds. I said love behaves better when people trust the process carefully. She yawned and curled around her stuffed fox like a moon. I closed the door and leaned against the frame quietly tonight. My phone buzzed again, and I deleted the preview immediately. Behind me, another drawer closed with a careful click, sounding final. Renee asked again about focus, inviting me into the HR room quietly. I smiled and said, growth sometimes looks messy before it becomes excellent. She suggested resources and I insisted personal matters were already stabilizing under brave choices. I promised deadlines would sparkle soon, and she nodded while typing neutral notes. Leaving HR, I passed glass offices and saw a minimized screen snap shut. A co-worker adjusted headphones and paused a serious call when I approached. I asked for a pen, and a muted notification flashed, "Follow up." The title vanished quickly as the window minimized again with careful precision. In the hallway, I rehearsed confidence and texted Sasha about optics and momentum. She said stay bright, post lightly, and ignore haters' haunting comment sections. At lunch, I met Adrian along the riverside embankment with runners passing. He hugged me sideways, gaze drifting toward the water and dog walkers. I asked about moving in soon, and he breathed slowly before answering. He said leases take planning, weekends are easier, and emotions need pacing. I said pacing felt like delay, and delay tasted like disrespect today. He looked at goals and said kindness includes patience for tricky transitions. I said bravery includes action, and action proves devotion without multiple caveats. He checked his phone and apologized for a message needing quick attention. I pretended relaxed, pretending timing issues were temporary tests of our connection. Back at work, I reposted a filtered story about choosing fierce honesty. Comments split again, mixing applause and complaints about cruelty wearing brave clothes. I told myself critics lacked imagination and loved stale marriages like prisons. After hours, I walked to the parking garage, with heels clicking deliberately. Footsteps paused behind me, then continued, echoing against concrete and distant engines. I turned and saw nobody, only shadows and a blinking elevator light. At home, the house smelled faintly of printer toner again at night. On the table, a sticky note read, "Bring forms," beside a folder. In the study, a laptop minimized mid-edit when I touched the chair. I said I only needed my charger, and the room stayed quiet. My phone buzzed with a gallery preview, showing a cropped document photograph. The title was missing, edges trimmed, only blocks of text visible. I scrolled quickly, heart racing, then locked the phone under my palm. From the other room came the steady hum of a working shredder. It stopped as I approached, like someone finished reshaping history into confetti. In the kitchen, 2 mugs sat on opposite counters like distant planets. I asked Marcus whether he planned to talk tonight about our situation. He said discussion should wait until the process protects everyone from more damage. I laughed sharply and called that corporate language for ditching responsibilities at home. He said calm helps, and records matter when memories keep shifting like sand. I said love should guide us, and he said dignity guides better. He rinsed his cup, dried it, and hung the towel precisely. I cornered him near the hall, asking if reconciliation even existed now. He said promises require actions, not captions, and truth likes quiet rooms. I said quiet rooms felt like punishment, and he shook his head. He picked up a binder labeled Utilities. Thinner last week, thicker now. I reached for it. He placed it down and locked a drawer. In the hallway mirror, I saw tired eyes and practiced a stronger smile. He set his travel mug out and checked keys on the hook. A new, unfamiliar key glinted under the porch light through the window. I asked what changed, and he said only the necessary boundaries changed. He shouldered his bag and met my stare without anger or pleading. He said he would handle everything properly because chaos had hurt enough already. The door latch clicked softly after he left, and the house held still. The lobby smelled like coffee and metal while noon traffic flowed steadily around me. I stood near the security desk, rehearsing careful lines about forgiveness and growth. Marcus arrived on time, neat and quiet, carrying nothing except that stern calm. I said we should talk privately, and he nodded toward an open space. A neutral stranger approached, holding an envelope, and asked my name very politely. I confirmed it, and the envelope touched my hand with official weight. The stranger stated delivery occurred here, then stepped aside without drama or delay. I opened the envelope and saw a petition with temporary orders inside. My eyes caught words about exclusive use of the residence granted to Marcus. A line detailed immediate freezes on joint discretionary accounts, pending an early conference. Another page listed a date and time for the first conference session. I said this felt sudden, and Marcus answered that clarity helps everyone breathe better. I said one mistake should not end everything, and he watched the floor. I said love could heal, and he said process protects dignity when stories spin. The security guard glanced over, then returned to scanning badges with practiced ease. I flipped another page and found instructions about access and property handling protocols today. My throat felt tight while people crossed in shoes that clicked like small clocks. Marcus said I could send questions to the contact listed on the first page. I said we should speak at home, and he said the document answers that. The lobby air cooled as doors opened and closed with soft hydraulic sighs. I said he could forgive, and he answered that forgiveness requires safety and truth first. I asked if he still loved me, and he said love respects boundaries. I said boundaries felt like punishment, and he said boundaries prevent more harm here. The elevator bell chimed, cheerful, cutting through the lobby murmurs like silver. The server observed quietly, confirming receipt with cautious eyes before stepping backward. I stared at the words again, reading them like heavy weather forecasts. My phone vibrated, but my hands stayed fixed around the stapled packet. Marcus thanked me for meeting and said the next steps were straightforward now. I asked what happened tonight, and he said the orders were answered tonight already. He pressed the call button and stood with a posture that refused both pity and gloating. I watched the mirrored doors slide open, reflecting my face and the packet. He stepped inside, nodded once, and said I should read everything carefully. I said we could still rewrite things, and he said paperwork writes cleaner than captions. The doors drew together with a smooth hush, and the bell chimed again. The guard asked if I was okay while footsteps flowed around my shoes. I looked down at the first page and knew where I could not go.